In this video, I'm going to talk about 6 great trilogy starter movies that you should watch. Hey, it's me AP and welcome back to another video. So, great trilogy starter movies. What is this all about? So, there are plenty of great trilogies out there and there's plenty of really bad trilogies, but I think with a good trilogy, it always has to start with the first movie being a good movie, being a fantastic movie. And as I said, some of these trilogies I'm going to discuss today, not all the movies in the trilogy are amazing, but they all start off with the first movie being an absolutely great movie. And that's why I thought it would be a fun topic to discuss in this video. So the first great trilogy starter movie I want to discuss is Star Trek, the reboot of the Star Trek franchise, directed by J.J. Abrams. This movie is something I've rewatched recently, and I remember when I watched it at the time, I thought it was a really good movie. I didn't watch it for several years. As I said, recently rewatched it, and this is such an amazing movie. A great sci-fi movie, Star Trek. It really just brings Star Trek to the forefront. I was never a Star Trek fan, and I watched this movie, and it just got me into it straight away, into the idea of Star Trek. I've still never went back and watched the originals, but for me, this is what Star Trek is now. It is action, it's sci-fi, it's going to space, going exploring, fighting against different races, trying to protect Earth and other communities throughout space. And they nailed it in this film. J.J. Abrams nailed it as the director. He got a fantastic cast of actors, and I really enjoyed this. And I don't think the third movie is amazing. I think the second one is quite good with Benedict Cumberbatch, but the first movie is superb, and I would most definitely recommend to anyone to watch the reboot of the Star Trek franchise. The next movie I want to discuss is Batman Begins. So the Dark Knight trilogy is, for me, one of the best trilogies out there. It is phenomenal, and it started off with something that went under my radar, Batman Begins. I never watched it at the cinema. I don't recall watching it at the cinema. I remember hearing about it, and then just a few years, maybe a year or two later, I ended up watching Batman Begins, and I suppose it's underappreciated in a way compared to The Dark Knight, because The Dark Knight is such a good movie, and because of the legacy of Heath Ledger, Batman Begins often feels like it's the forgotten movie in the franchise, but really it kicked off this great Batman of Christian Bale's portrayal of Batman. It set up the Joker at the end of the first movie. I really like the story within the first movie. It's the telling of him becoming Batman, with Liam Neeson as the villain throughout the first movie. It's a great movie, and it really does kickstart the trilogy, and it's a great starter to the trilogy. So next up, I'm going to change the pace a bit, and we're going to go into comedy movies with Robert De Niro and Ben Stiller, and it is the Meet the Parents movie from the Meet the Parents trilogy of movies. And this was the first one that came out, and I still to this day think it is a really fun movie, Meet the Parents. It's very laughable, a lot of laughable moments. I think the second one's just as good as the first one. The third one, it felt like it was going a bit downhill, it was going a bit stale, but the first one was so fresh. It really shown that Robert De Niro can do comedy movies as well, even though he's quite serious within this movie. But it also highlights, the talent of Ben Stiller. I mean, this was like prime Ben Stiller comedy movies. This, and it's a fun movie for the whole family. I really enjoy Meet the Parents. I just, there's some moments in this where you can't help but laugh, and it is definitely a good starter movie to a trilogy of movies. Not the best trilogy in the world, but it's a great starter movie. Next, I want to discuss a Marvel movie, and it is Iron Man starring Robert Downey Jr. This is what kicked off a trilogy of Iron Man movies. It also really kicked off the MCU. It was a phenomenal movie for the time, magnificent movie, really brought Robert Downey Jr. into stardom, really, this movie. I don't recall him having the best of careers before this. This really made him a household name, really, Robert Downey Jr. But Iron Man, again, for me, I was aware of the character, but I think, again, it sort of brought him to the front of the queue of actors, and it brought that character of Iron Man to a lot of people's attention as well, and it really kicked off what we can do, the idea of what people can do with comic book movies. And Iron Man was a great watch. I love this movie to this day. I really enjoy watching Iron Man 1. It kickstarted a trilogy, as I said, of Iron Man movies. I think it's the best of the bunch of the trilogy of movies. Iron Man 2, I don't think Iron Man 2 is as bad as some people make it out to be. I think Iron Man 3 is absolutely garbage. I remember watching that at the cinema and think it was utter garbage. And to this day, I still think Iron Man 3 is garbage. But I think Iron Man 1 really sums up what Iron Man is within the MCU and within this trilogy. He's like a maverick. He's not afraid to do what he wants to do. At the end of the movie, he proves that. He just tells the whole world that he is Iron Man. And I think he's just a guy who just likes to live on the edge, Tony Stark. He likes to live on the edge and he wants everyone to know it. And Iron Man is most certainly a great starter to a somewhat great trilogy of movies, I would say. Next on my list of movies with great trilogy starters is The Mummy. And this is The Mummy starring Brendan Fraser. And I mean, this movie, for me, I really enjoyed it at the time. I thought it was a great explorer movie, a great adventure movie. I think Brendan Fraser is fantastic in the role, and it's a 90s movie. It doesn't feel like a 90s movie, it feels like a classic movie. I feel like it's a movie that, at this moment in time, it's not like de-aged. I feel like it's got that sort of like a classic feel to it. And I think this movie started off the trilogy of Mummy movies. I think the first two are really good movies. The Mummy and The Mummy Returns, really cool movies. And then the last one was not that great. They changed some of the cast members within it. I don't think it was hitting the levels. I don't think it felt like the same tone as the first two movies. That was the problem as well with the third movie. But this movie, The Mummy, it's on par with like an Indiana Jones. It's a great adventure movie. I think it's a fun movie to watch. It's light-hearted. It's a good one. And if you're after something to watch and you're into something full of adventure, The Mummy has definitely got it, with some soft horror elements, I would say. I wouldn't say it's a full-on horror, but it is a good movie and it's well worth the watch, The Mummy. So the last movie I want to discuss today is Rise of the Planet of the Apes, the reboot of the Planet of the Apes franchise. I am a big Planet of the Apes movie fan. I really enjoy the very original movie, and I was intrigued to see what they could do with this. Again, I enjoyed the original TV show as well. So when they announced the reboot, I was thinking, what are they going to do with this? How are they going to approach it? What's it going to be like? And they really changed it up for the start of this trilogy. I mean, the CGI mocap apes, for one, is a massive change in style. They've shifted the gears, really. You've got Andy Serkis playing the ape, and it's kind of flipped it within the first movie, where it feels like, compared to the original Planet of the Apes movie, the apes are taking the role of the humans. They are just apes at the start of this movie, and then slowly we see the rise of the apes. And it's an interesting story that they never told within the Planet of the Apes live action film universe to that point, really. And it was fresh, it was well done. I think the CGI and the mocap is very, very good in this. I really enjoy the mocap. I think it looks great. I mean, I enjoyed the masks of the original apes, and I still, to this day, I think they could still work in a movie, but I think the mocap also works, and I think the CGI is phenomenal. They look so realistic, the apes in this. It is fantastic, and it really, for me, this kickstarted a great trilogy. And this isn't just a great starter movie for a trilogy of movies, it is a great trilogy. And it's because this sets the tone, and it feels like it progresses well within the whole trilogy of the Planet of the Apes movies. And up until the last movie, the character progression is the story, the overall world changes, but it changes well, and it works well within the whole trilogy. And it all starts with this first movie. And I think it starts off a trilogy of movies that is magnificent. So there we have it, 6 great trilogy starter movies. I hope you enjoyed my choices today, really, and I'd love to find out what choices you would have as what do you think are great trilogy starter movies. I'm sure there's plenty out there when it comes to trilogy starter ones, but these ones specifically I wanted to talk about today because, again, I think they're great starters to trilogies. I think they really kick off the franchise and kick off and give it momentum to all of these trilogies here I was talking about. If you enjoyed this video today anyway, please do give it a like and subscribe to the channel for more movie related content. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.